Hey guys, I'm Scott, and welcome to the very first episode of Opposite the Monitor, a gaming podcast where I give my thoughts and opinions on gaming events, topics, things like that have happened in the past week. If you like this style of content, make sure you hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a video. So, one of the first things that I want to talk about that happened last week was Final Fantasy 16 that got showed at Sony's State of Play, more than 25 minutes of gameplay that they showed off. In my opinion, I think that this is definitely a step up from the last Final Fantasy game, which was Final Fantasy 15. I'm not too deep into Final Fantasy. I played Final Fantasy 7, the original Final Fantasy 7 remake, as well as Final Fantasy. I dabbled in a little bit of Final Fantasy 14 in the MMO. But Final Fantasy 15, definitely 16 is a step up from Final Fantasy 15. Final Fantasy 15, I wasn't really invested into the setting, the set pieces, some of the characters. It felt kind of out of place. It was very left field. It almost felt almost like corporate, a lot of corporate dabbling in that one. As far as Final Fantasy 16, from what they showed last week, the 25 minutes of gameplay was amazing. Everyone seems to be hyped around the icon battles and things like that. Me personally, I think one of the highlights of it, in my opinion, was just the sequence to sequence combat that happened. I remember the director specifically talking about how there was a little inspiration from the Dark Souls, and I can kind of see that in this gameplay. But for the most part, seems like a lot of the hype was drawn around finally seeing these icon battles and things of that nature, which definitely look amazing. They definitely changed the dynamic of gameplay from going from the normal sequence to sequence combat to basically kaiju fighting kaiju basically, and showing off some like incredible graphics and mechanics and things like that. Just a few key points that actually kind of stood out to me as I saw saw the state of play of the conference and everything like that. So they specifically talk about the companions. This was one point of contention that I kind of had, because although it is different, I still like the traditional Final Fantasy, I guess, kind of chemistry they created with each character, that you can be able to jump from character to character. Just even in Final Fantasy 7 remake, jumping from character to character and being able to use that character's abilities, skills, and things like that within combat. So they specifically talk about this and saying, speaking of Clive, players will only ever play as Clive. There will be companions that join you along the way, but they will be controlled completely by AI. And that's kind of it's different from previous iterations of Final Fantasy. I don't personally have a big problem with it, but it's kind of different. And I want to know how a lot of people will feel about this change in this Final Fantasy iteration. If you let me know in the comments if you agree with this. If not, me personally, I like the traditional way of how Final Fantasy has been, and so Final Fantasy 16 is definitely going in a different route. Not saying it's too much. I'm basically being nitpicky at this point, but it's not too much of a big change. But I do like having the ability to play as multiple characters and using different skill sets for different situations that may arise within combat, within the sequence to sequence combat. Continuing, however, Clive will have Torgal by his side for most of the game, who happens to be the goodest dog a hero could ever ask for, and they will be able to issue Torgal commands. So they still they're kind of leaning a little bit more into being able to control the character, but it's kind of more in the not necessarily traditional sense of Final Fantasy 16, but more so just a simple companion that you can kind of direct commands to. which is perfectly fine. But like I said before, I still kind of like that traditional Final Fantasy uh, uh way that they've gone with the mechanics and the being able to jump from character to character. They also focus on some of the accessibility features. There's a lot, just some of the more traditional things that are added into modern day games. But specifically, this one was kind of different because it does offer a more ease of use for people who may not necessarily be uh, great at uh, speed hack and slash, basically, like quick thinking, things like that. And it also can still offer a it almost kind of feels like a quick time event. Like it's like they kind of implemented a quick time event, but old school Final Fantasy, if you played before, is turn based. So they kind of still added that in there. But I'm pretty sure that's this particular feature specifically for people who are like new users, new gamer, or new entries to Final Fantasy 16. But they go on to say that these rings, including the ring of timely focus and the ring of timely strikes, will offer assists in combat. The ones mentioned here will slow down time when you are attacked, so you can focus on executing a combo attack with the press of just one button. And so I think that's just a feature to allow people to be able to still who aren't necessarily familiar or who don't necessarily play these combat style games like this. So if you're not like uh, a Dark Souls player or a Demon Souls player or a Bloodborne, things like that, then this kind of, I guess, allows you to be able to kind of ease your way into this. And luckily, it's a feature that you can enable and disable as well. They also go on to kind of give the generic things that come within an RPG or JRPG in this instance. So you kind of get like the hideout. You get the different characters that you can interact with, all of the different companions. But you also get the hideout is mostly just like a hub, so you kind of get like the side quests and things like that. And me personally, I like this particular focus because in the previous they kind of had this in the previous iterations, but you're just driving around in a car in Final Fantasy 15. You do go to these different towns and hubs and stuff like that, but for the most part it's just a big open nothingness in Final Fantasy 15. And that was one of the downfalls, in my opinion, with Final Fantasy 15. But it seems like they're going more for a traditional RPG style, which is nice. So you get to go in, you get to go to the hub from time to time, purchase weapons, armor, consumables, things like that, upgrade weapons, equipment. And that's a nice change of pace. I do like the fact that they're going with the fantasy medieval style in this version versus the everyone criticizes Final Fantasy 15 for the boy band type aesthetic that the characters had in the previous game. So that's nice. It's a nice change. And I think personally, that Final Fantasy 16 is definitely offering a lot uh, for players and for people for fans of the franchise. Um, Still, from what I've seen from comments and things like that, I know a lot of people are, it's definitely kind of like a hesitation, especially given how the climate's been for video games lately, or just in recent years of just like, you know, making promises and then not being able to deliver on those promises, or making games, selling them for $120, i.e., Battlefield 2042, and it just the shit just comes completely broken day one. A lot of frustrated gamers, and so I see a lot of comments are just like, hey, I'm just gonna wait, which is always the best thing to do. Never pre-order things that you don't really have faith in. Me personally, there's some games and some game developers that I trust. They haven't necessarily let me down yet. Until they do, and until I see the track record changes, I will go into my shell of like, nah, I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna put that off to the side, and then see how things unfold. But it is nice to get these features and things like that in this game. Which is, I mean, it's kind of the same like generic we have a hub, we have characters, you can have the different weapons, armor, things like that. They also added the like a hunt board. So if it like it's resembling, they're taking aspects from The Witcher and being able to implement that into the game, and that also definitely helps too. Games like The Witcher or games like no, I'm losing my train of thought. Games like Monster Hunter World, things like that. And it's actually like, nice because there's a lot of it allows you to be able to kind of be to get like different side quests and things like that. My only concern is that I don't want this game to turn into uh like a Far Cry 6 or the Far Cry series, where it's just like a laundry list of shit for you to go get, and you have to just go here, go get this, come back, deliver this. Oh, here's your prize for bringing me this. Thank you. Go get this now. Go get this, and it just becomes monotonous, and it's just something that's not necessarily um like good for keeping gamers long term. I think that's like, and not to knock Far Cry, because Far Cry game, there's nothing wrong with Far Cry games, even though they get a bad rap, but it's Ubisoft's like monotonous. I'm gonna implement the same thing in every game that I make. I want these side quests to basically offer something different each time I do a side quest. I like I don't know if you like, so back then when you remember like original uh man, I'm losing my train of thought. So like original uh RPGs back in the day, where uh you would do a side quest, but the side quests would change, they would differ, and it would lead into investigations basically. And you can come across new characters, come across new enemy types, things like that. And hopefully they don't make that same mistake with this one. But as previous games, but we'll just have to see. We'll just have to wait until release date. But they offer a lot of stuff here, man. And Final Fantasy 16 just seems like they did a really good job with showcasing the game and state of play last week, and it's just it was amazing. But yeah, that's mostly everything I have to say up on Final Fantasy 16. Though I will link this article in the description as well. You can be able to check out. They have multiple videos of combat, especially the skill trees, being able to upgrade skills. They even have the respec option where you can kind of reset all of your skills, get everything back, and it doesn't seem like it's a transactional thing. You can just reset everything at a whim whenever you want to, kind of play in the different abilities, things like that. So that's also great. That's nice to have as well. Um, but yeah, definitely looking forward to Final Fantasy 16. Can't wait to play it. And I definitely want to check this out. And I think it has. I think it's going to be a solid game. From what I can tell from the 25 minutes of gameplay they showed, it's definitely going to be a solid game. I'm excited for it, definitely. So moving on to the next thing that we have here is Redfall, and man, it's just Redfall's just been getting hit with like bad news after bad news after bad news. Not only is a lot of people, you know, have a kind of a disdain when it comes to these exclusives and things like that. And Microsoft's purchasing this game and canceling it on PlayStation and stuff like that, which, Final Fantasy is a PlayStation 5 exclusive. So you kind of get, Final Fantasy is exclusive to PlayStation, but then, Redfall's exclusive to Xbox and PC. And so it's like, but Redfall was, like there was a lot of hype behind Redfall initially when it got first announced, and just now it's just like bad news after bad news after bad news with it, including the atrocious representation of the gameplay showing that IGN did. That was, I don't know who was playing that game, but like, damn, man, it's like you, you know, it's almost like he never played, he or she never played a final, a first person shooter before, and it's just there's no shortage of people that know how to play an FPS. Like, I'm pretty sure you can just pull a teenager off the street and tell them, here, I'll pay you $60, go play this game for me to record or whatever, you know. So it's just like, I don't like that. That was an atrocious display of, you know, of trying to draw hype for a game. But once again, we got Redfall here, and it's being locked at 30 FPS on Xbox Series S and as well as X. And it's also coming out with de novo day one. And it's just, man, it's just another ink in that armor, another dent in that armor. And it's kind of disappointing. We all know de novo causes major performance issues across games on PC. And it's just, this is just another like hit for Redfall. Me personally, I still want to play Redfall. I still not necessarily uh, I don't necessarily, it's not hope necessarily, but it's more so just like I still have a little excitement to play a Redfall. Because I do like I like the set, I like the setting, I like, you know, the fact that it's vampires. I feel like the fact that it's open world, almost kind of like a survival first person shooter, like RPG style. Arcane, you know, does make great games. And I see a lot of people comparing, like, Arcane kind of with their track history as of late, with the previous game that they released, which forgets my memory now. It was just that forgettable. But that game was developed by, it was still Arcane, but it wasn't Arcane Austin. I think Redfall is developed by Arcane Austin. You guys fact check me in the comments, but I'm pretty sure Arcane Redfall is developed by Arcane Austin, and they're the ones that did Dishonored, not the last Deathloop game. Was the game that recently came out from Arcane. And so I think this game is going to be way better than Deathloop. Deathloop came out with performance issues that like just were ridiculous. And Redfall, it's made by the Arcane Austin, the major studio. So I still have a little hope out for this game. I don't like the fact that the Nouveau is day one with this. It's a little ridiculous to do that, but hey, you know, I'm not a developer. I'm just the one. I'm just a consumer. And, you know, typically I don't know why developers continue to put de novo in their games when there's other anti-tamper software that could be implemented into these games, but de novo is just the leading anti-tamper software that, you know, most game developers use. So it's just like, you know, I guess to them it's like, hey, if it's not broken, don't fix it, you know, type thing, even though it is broken. But you know, but yeah, so it's releasing 30 FPS on Xbox Series X and S, and releasing with the Nouveau. So, you know, hopefully they can turn this around. They've been doing pretty good by listening to feedback. I know that originally they announced that this game was going to release with online for single player, which was, I still think is ridiculous. Gran Turismo did the same thing, and that was stupid too. Um, but they listened to community feedback. They changed what they were going to initially do, and now that shouldn't be an issue going forward. So hopefully, performance, I mean, 30 FPS, yeah, it's kind of like a drag, but you know, you kind of want your game to be complete day one, you know, like especially in the graphics department, like in the performance, like you want this to be, you know, just a standard. And coming out in 2023 with 30 FPS is not a good look at all. So yeah, if 60 FPS is coming at a later date, but you know, most gamers want what they want, you know, and if you're going to charge people $60-$70 for a product, then you need to be able to deliver that product fully feature complete, not necessarily, half-assing it day one, and that's just kind of the climate we've gotten into with developers just half-assing day one, and not necessarily putting their best foot forward when developing these games. So yeah, it's not a good look. I'm still excited, well, a little bit excited for it. I'm buying it on PC, so the 60 FPS isn't the 30 FPS isn't necessarily going to be an issue for me. The Denuvo is going to be more of an issue for me, but um, let me know what you think in the comments, man. Like, are you, I know a lot of people are necessarily like upset about this, and I don't think it's just Arcane and Redfall. I think it's just a pattern of developers not releasing games day one and drumming up a lot of hype for shit that's broken or things that's not necessarily like fully feature complete, and it's just exhausting at this point to continuously see things like this happen. So I think that um it's definitely going to be great when it releases, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, especially if they can be able to find ways to have a lot of replayability within the game. But I don't necessarily think that this is a good look moving forward. But hey, I mean, I'm a consumer, and corporations don't necessarily give a damn about what consumers think. So, but yeah, moving forward though, we have next is Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. Thank God this shit has been delayed to 2024, because that gameplay trailer that they released was complete dog shit. That is not rocks. That is not a good representation of Rocksteady at all. Like, just if you can look at stark contrast between the Arkham games, and granted, this isn't Rocksteady. This isn't the Rocksteady who made Arkham games. This is whatever kind of piecemeal, Rocksteady that they're just trying to follow trends. They're just trying to, see whatever's popular, or whatever they think is popular, and whatever they think their consumer base wants. And this is just another example of developers and corporations not understanding their community and not understanding, hey, this shit doesn't look good, don't put this out. You know what I'm saying? So luckily and thankfully, the video got ratioed to hell, and people voiced their opinion, and they let Rocksteady know, like, hey, you need to go back and work on this shit. This shit is not what we want. And a lot of the times too, corporations and companies, they try to force feed people things, and they try to double down on things that they just don't want to change. But I've always been a pro consumer. I've always been basically just a person that values my money and my time, and voting with your wallet on things like this and making your voice heard about just shit that you don't like is great. So they came out with a statement and basically saying, we have made the tough but necessary decision to take the time needed to work on getting the game to be the best quality experience for players. If I had a dime for every damn time I heard that, I'd be a million, because this is the most generic copy paste, copy pasta a statement that you can make when delaying your game. And I feel like a lot of the times developers make these statements and stuff like that, and they drum up hype for a game too early, in my opinion. They release trailers, unnecessary cinematic trailers that I think should just, that whole entire marketing strategy should just die off, because gamers don't want to see cinematic trailers. Gamers want to see gameplay. I want to see what the game looks like. I don't give a damn about a scripted cinematic, in my opinion. Like, gamers want to see gameplay. Gamers want to see how the game is going to look day one, or they want to see the progress that's been made within gaming. They don't want to see, a cinematic, like a cinematic set piece, what I'm saying, that, like, gamers want to see actual gameplay. Thank you to our amazing community for the continued support, patience, and understanding. There's much more to share in the months ahead, and we look forward to seeing you in Metropolis next year. Thank God. That's probably the smartest decision they've made so far, is to just go back to the drawing board. Go back to the drawing board, change up like that, like change up a lot of what you're doing, because that that gameplay was just a bunch of a bunch of sliding, sliding, jumping, shooting, blobs. You know what I'm saying? Shooting blobs, and continue to rinse and repeat that process. And it looks like a live service looter shooter. And that's basically what it is. It's like a live service looter shooter that you're paying actual money for, and it's not free to play. Like, this brings back Anthem vibes so much, and it's just like, it's ridiculous at this point to be able to constantly look at these games being made. They're spending millions of dollars on these games, and they're being mismanaged. They're not being developed correctly, and I don't blame developers when it comes to this, because they're just doing what they're told. Basically, they're not the creative ones behind it. um they're the ones that are just, they get paid to do a job, what I'm saying, and they go do that job every day, and then, corporations work them to the bone, and it's, unfair, ridiculous, but it is what it is. And these, you know, as far as Rocksteady and this game and stuff like that, like, it definitely needs to go back to the drawing board. They definitely need to go back and try to, you know, take the time with this, because Suicide Squad, it is a big property, and that was just not a good representation of what gamers were expecting from this. And you know, you don't want to, create an atmosphere of, you know terrible game after terrible game, because with Gotham Knights also wasn't received well. And so if you're coming off the heels of Gotham Knights and you show that particular gameplay, that shit's gonna leave a sour taste in people's mouths of like, okay, when Rocksteady makes another game, this shit's gonna be awful. You know what I'm saying? Or just not necessarily, just not Rocksteady themselves. It was a different developer who made Gotham Knights, but like, just games coming from the WB Studios. It's just, you're going to end up making yourselves like, EA or Ubisoft. You're gonna drum up a reputation for yourself for making shit games that people don't like. And so, you know, luckily they delayed it. Luckily they're gonna work on it. Hopefully, because that game looked like it needed at least another eight. Possibly, I would want to gauge like 8 to 12. I mean, like 8 to 10 months of just constant work. Um, I definitely think it needed a lot more work. And even graphically, it didn't look that well neither. There was a lot of frame drop in that gameplay video as well. It seemed like it was running all like too smooth and stuff like that. So it's just, yeah, they made the correct decision, delay it, go back to the drawing board, come back, show us something new. But finally, there was one more game that got announced at I think it was a Game Awards last year. But this particular game, Immortals of Aveum, I think I pronounced it correctly. This was just one of the games that I kind of wanted to talk about, because it popped up on my radar last week, and it piqued my interest, because it's an FPS, it's a first person shooter, but not necessarily with weapons. You're using magic and things like that, using with the magical gauntlet, from what I can tell, in the official trailer, as well as some of these screenshots I'm about to go through. But it's made by Ascendant Studios. And one of the key things I want to point out too is that, like, I saw a lot of, people talking about, oh man, it's EA and things like that, and I will say EA is kind of turning things around with the Star Wars franchise, and Respawn kind of like, drumming up some good rapport with EA. But this game is also not developed by EA. It's published by EA, but it's developed by Ascendant Studios. And after like doing a little bit of research, I found out like with Brett Robbins, one of the CEO of Ascendant Studios, worked on like Call of Duty titles, Dead Space, Legacy of Kain, which is a great old school series. I think I heard about them trying to revive that series, which is actually pretty dope. But yeah, and so just from looking at the trailer, which I'm also going to link in the description too, if you want to check out if you haven't seen this game yet. But Immortals of Aveum looked amazing. It did like even though it's an independent studio, it definitely looks like a AAA title just from the gameplay. So this particular trailer does show off. It's half cinematic, half gameplay, which is not the greatest. I'm more of a full gameplay type person. I don't care about cinematics because that's not the true that's not what the game is actually going to look like. So I'm more of a gameplay marketing strategist per se. I like that kind of strategy versus cinematics. But this game looked amazing. It piqued my interest. You're basically uh, a they call them immortals, which I also think is funny too because it's not the traditional definition of an immortal, but they describe it here saying that despite the traditional definition, these immortals do not possess eternal life. It's a name meant to strike fear in the hearts of foes. After all, who is less afraid of death than a person the concept wouldn't apply to? Which I thought was pretty funny because it's a round, I guess it's a nuanced way of trying to create a new definition for the word immortal. So I thought that was pretty funny. But um, so as you can see here, they have like these gauntlets. And this is what creates the different magical abilities that you can be able to use that kind of function like a traditional weapon. So they kind of function like the shooting projectiles, things like that. And they kind of go over some of the abilities that you can be able to use. For example, they have breach fire that acts similarly to a shotgun. Storm shards are rapid firing homing projectiles, and javelins are chargeable projectiles you can hurl at enemies. And so this is something that kind of piqued my interest because I'm starting to like these first person magical type games. For instance, like Obsidian Studio or Obsidian Entertainment announced Avowed. That looks amazing. And so it kind of put me in the same, I guess, feel. And this game is kind of in the same vein, but it's not necessarily a full-fledged RPG or fantasy RPG. It still has some of the same RPG elements, as well as purchasing abilities with skill points, leveling those abilities up, customizing those abilities, things like that. But it's more on the side of a fast-paced shooter, and you can kind of see that inspiration from Call of Duty within this game. But from what I can tell, it looks like it's going to be a really good game. Nice set pieces, things like that. Graphically, it looks amazing. Not just these cinematic cut screens that you can see on cut scenes that you can see on screen, but just graphically, it looks really good, fast paced. So I'm interested. If you want to check out this game, I'll put the link for the description. I'll put the link for this in the description as well as the video in the description as well. And yeah, that's it, guys. So if you like this style of content, man, subscribe to the channel, like the video if you like the video, and hit the notification bell, man. These are gonna come out once a week. Think I'm probably gonna release them once a week on Tuesdays. And so uh yeah, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments, man. Let me know what game does Immortals of Aveum pique your interest. How do you feel about Final Fantasy 16? Like, is Final Fantasy 16 going to be on your radar after the 25-minute gameplay that they showed off? Are you going to purchase Redfall? Because Redfall looks like it's going to not release in a ideal state. and that may hinder its sales. You know, what do you think about Suicide Squad being delayed? I personally think it was a good choice to do. Like, there's no other way around it. That did not go over well with the people who were excited for that game. So, yeah, let me know in the comments below, man. And thank you for watching today. And I will see you guys next week.